So I think we're now recording, and we'll make a start. I often think that, the ones who show up first, I probably can predict how it's going to go in the future. Thanks for not joining us. We still got one more. So what we'll do, we'll go today through a couple of things, and what I want to do is just show you what my goals are. Are you able to see my screen as well?
I am.
Great. We'll go with that. If someone is lost, I think that there's not that much to look at by looking at me, but I think it's fair, since we're not in a classroom, that you also see that I'm a real person here. So what we're planning to do today is to just quickly, I want to introduce what's going on, where we are, what's the goals, and talk about what is this concept that we have these live online meetings. What's the goal with those? What are the kind of ground rules? What do I promise for you out of those? And what do we need to do to be prepared for the class? And then we'll have a look at quickly what this course will contain. And our focus will be on this one, as it will be in future sessions on that week's module that we're taking. So what are the assignments? What are the due dates? If you have questions on those, what are the key points of the material and so on? And I want to just quickly then introduce you also the tutoring services that we have available. And I'm saving a lot of time for the questions that you may have. I don't expect that this will necessarily take the entire hour, but we have time if that's needed. I'm glad to see that we're having a couple of more people joining us. So let's have a look. So I think that it's only fair. I'm not really keen to talk about myself, but it's only fair that I say a few words about myself. So my real name is Samuli Holami, but obviously no one can say that. So I go by Sam, and I'm totally happy with that. And probably the easiest way to reach me is through the Canvas messaging. I know that there's a couple of messages. I'm going to answer those right after this session, and we'll take it from there. Usually the Canvas is quickest, and it's also the easiest. There is a little bit of a backstory to it. For accreditation reasons, we always have to copy everything, all the communication that we have, to Canvas. And I'm quite heavily involved on the accreditation side of the things in another institution. So if you send me an email, which is totally fine, I will probably copy that email and my answer to Canvas as well, other than just sending you an answer. So either way is fine, but just so you know, you don't wonder why you might be receiving 2 copies of the same message. And although we're now on an online setting, it doesn't mean that there's not going to be any support for you. I am totally available for you guys. I work in a few different places, but I will make myself available by appointment at any time that you want. I sometimes am also at the overseas, so it can be even at the night. I'll be available. So don't feel that you don't have that option. And I think having an hour a week is not a huge amount of time. But my goal is that it's not that only hour that you feel that you have available of the support. The support is there for much more than just a single hour. I think that I posted already on the Meet Your Instructors section a little bit about me and my background. And again, I don't think that you signed up for this course to hear about me. But since we are going to be spending time together for about 17 weeks, it's probably reasonable that I just quickly mention where do I come from and what's the goal with that. The first thing that I do want to mention, though, is that obviously I have an accent. And if you cannot understand me at some point, do shout out. Do it as quickly and as soon as you can. I used to teach ultrasound in a private school, and I did have a class where I forgot to say that at the very beginning. And about 90 minutes in, I asked that if there were any questions, and one student raised her hand and said that I haven't understood anything the entire time. So let's avoid that. Do give me a shout out, and I'll try to either slow down or speak more clearly, or for example, try to phrase it differently. I know that I have an accent, and usually when I'm really tired or really excited about the topic, it does come through even stronger. So you don't hesitate to give me a shout out if that happens. So what's my real job? I come from the cardiac MRI imaging field. And what you see on the screen, this is not going to be on the exam, and I'm not going to spend a lot of that, but it's to give you an idea of what I do on a daily basis. So I look at MRI scanners, which take about 2 to 3 seconds to acquire an image of something, and that's just a single image. And I'm interested in taking images of a heart. And I'm sure that at this point you all know that heart isn't stationary, heart keeps moving. So how do you take a picture that needs things to be still for 2 to 3 seconds of a moving object? I think that that's kind of an exciting challenge. And we have actually been able to accomplish that pretty well in the past. We have used these kind of traditional approaches where we take more of these black and white pictures that you can see that are usually enhanced with some sort of enhancement chemical such as gadolinium. But what I'm interested in is taking the MRI scanner and making it to do something different. And what I do is a lot of these images that you see that have fancy colors, the colors don't really mean that much. The colors are just a tool to signify the same things, that the same info that we could get from those black and white pictures. But what I do, we know that tissue changes when you get a heart attack, and especially the water content of a tissue. And it just happens that MRI scanner is especially sensitive to that. So why would it be useful for us that MRI scanner is sensitive for water when we're looking at humans? Does anyone know why would we want to look at the amount of water in a human being? You can shout out, or you can write on the chat, or whatever. Well, I'm going to help at the beginning now. So a lot of human body is made of water, about 70%. It varies a little bit on the source that you look at. It varies a little bit on the age and certain conditions and so on. But we're mostly made of water. An MRI scanner looks at the amount of water. And what we notice that the amount of water in different tissues changes. So whereas in the past, as you can see here, on the traditional techniques, we looked at this white area, that is the dead heart tissue, because there was no blood supply there. The newer techniques, we look at a much larger area that you can see here. And this larger area tells us an area that will probably die in the future, but it's not yet dead. And that combined with the traditional imaging tells us that how much there is actually tissue that can be saved of the heart. And that's why insurance companies are really happy with what I do and so on. So that's just to give you an idea of what I do for a living. But how do you end up there from what was my first background? And I think I went into quite a lot of detail about this in my Meet Your Instructor chat, or text. So I won't go into too much of a detail, but I was initially one of my first proper jobs in this field, or in the professional field as an adult, was to be a conservator restorer. Does anyone know what a conservator restorer does, or did anyone read the text? Don't hesitate, you can just turn on the mic, and you don't have to turn on the picture if you don't want.
I read it. It's where you're looking at basically remains, right?
Perfect. Thank you, Hannah. I really appreciate that. I always appreciate when students take part, and trust me, I take a little notes, and those do count when the grades are just on the borderline. So yeah, basically what a conservator restorer does, we work with old stuff, old objects, especially museum objects and so on. So that's what I was trained, and I specialized on working with archaeological objects, and soon enough I found myself working at the excavation sites. So basically you've got the archaeologist who finds the object, and then we have to take care of it moving onwards from there. And I ended up working a lot with human remains, like you said, and human remains that either had the objects attached to them or that were just human remains. And at that point, I realized that it probably would be quite useful for me to know a little bit about human anatomy. So I did my undergrad and my postgrad in the University of Glasgow after the previous degree, BA in conservation restoration. And I specialized on anatomy. So I think at this point you all have talked about what's the difference between anatomy and physiology. What am I good at and what I'm not? Well, I am okay on that, but what is not really the main emphasis of our course? What's the difference between anatomy and physiology? I think this is really one of the basic questions at the first AMP class. Again, you can write or you can shout out. Well, I'm going to help at this point, so perfect. Excellent, Cindy. So anatomy is all about structure. So I'm really good at spotting parts of the human body and naming them. And then when you ask, what does it do? I'm like, I don't know. No, I actually do know, but we're not as passionate about physiology. But what it turns out to be that to understand a shape, you also have to understand the function. So A and P are kind of related. But that's really good. At least I know that we have a good foundation to build on. And that led me actually into doing some forensic work. And I was going to tell you a few words about the forensic work, but then I thought that if I do, I might have to kill all of you. No, I'm just kidding. So we'll save that till later. And probably to a session that's not going to be recorded, because there are certain things that I can tell, but certain things that I can't. But I worked for the Scottish police for a while on that. And then I realized that it'd be handy to have a look of these human remains without having to chop them apart. As an anatomist, that's what we do. We break things apart, take things apart, name them, and then we're like, okay, we're done. But it'd be useful to have a look into those, and I did start looking at various different medical imaging techniques. And that led me into then working in a medical clinical research and clinical research trials. When I moved to America, I actually changed a little bit what I did. I wanted to get out of a heavily research-based position and gain a little bit of teaching experience. So I actually ended up working for an ultrasound school, private school in Phoenix, where we teach ultrasound. And I spent there a couple of years, and it was very useful. I also did teach future nurses and so on. So if that's a field that you're interested, let me know, and I'm quite happy to organize you even a chance to visit them, provided that the social distancing measures are kind of eased off. And after I was teaching ultrasound, I actually realized I'm kind of an accidental teacher. I never planned to be a teacher, that I actually dig this a lot. And I ended up doing adjuncting somewhere else, getting a full-time professorship somewhere else. And then I was asked to help out this semester here as well. And I'm excited to do that because I'm going to be honest, Chandler Gilbert is one of my favorite colleges of the Maricopa college system, so community college system. So I think you are in a really good place, and I think you're really motivated, and you have great support. We'll get you where you want to be. So I'm really excited to be working. But that's enough about me. I think we had the icebreaker discussion already going on, and I saw some really good answers there. And I'm actually really excited to be able to answer to those. But does any of you want to share what you wrote there? It doesn't matter if you don't want, but even just one of those questions. I see Hannah has a hand up.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to press that first, but
Either way works.
so do we answer every single one, or just
you can
one
answer
of the
whatever
questions?
you want.
Okay. Well, my name is Hannah, and my goal is to be an OB nurse or a NICU nurse.
That's awesome. Well,
So
I actually do teach a lot of pre-nursing, and I'm involved also with I can't say the name of the school where I work as a full-time professor, but with their nursing program, and their director of nursing is a very good personal friend of mine. So if you do need to and want to get at some point a little bit more experience, I used to take my students there for a hands-on class, clinical class, every now and then. So that's an option. Let's just see how this COVID situation first develops. And I also see the
cool.
goal was to be a psychiatric nurse, which is really admirable. I really admire anyone who can do that. My major was psychology, and then I went to spend summer in a mental health care home, and I was sitting there day after day, and all I wanted to do was to get up and slap them and tell them all that snap out of it, which was not a really good thing to do, but it was a sign for me that I probably shouldn't be heading for that field. So I changed into studying just structures. Anyone else who... These helped me a lot, because based on these, I also know what are your interests, what are you passionate about, so I can kind of more of emphasize those themes and those topics.
So
Go ahead.
I'm typically the odd man out in these classes. I'm going into dental hygiene, not anything nursing related. And if I could have a superpower, I would like a stronger power of persuasion to create a better community and social system than what we have here in the United States.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing, Tony. Is it Tony Mary or just Tony?
I go by Tony Marie, even though it's my first name's kind of like when mom is mad, she yells your full name.
Okay, well, great. Actually, that's not too odd. Of course, I have few colleagues who are dental hygienists and then have moved on to teaching, actually, in a community college field, A&P. And it just happens that I used to work for the Glasgow Dental School, teaching the basically oral anatomy, the head and neck. You need to know a little bit more than just the mouth when you're giving various injections and so on. So I am pretty passionate about when it comes to the dentistry. So we can have a look if we can somehow squeeze that in at some point.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Excellent. And I see that Cindy is telling that she's looking at becoming a neonatal doctor, which is really, really... Again, I admire anyone who can head to that direction. That's a hard field. That's an exciting and rewarding field, but also it has a lot of things to think about. And it just happens also that I spent my honors years actually working on embryological research. So that's something that I think that we can, again, find some connections there. It was a field where I kind of felt that I wasn't always everyone's favorite. No one likes the guy who works with the embryos. Well, thank you for everyone who shared. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to move ahead a little bit, but I really do appreciate all of you having posted. I went too far. Having posted your answers, and we'll look at them a little bit more later on. We will have these meetings, kind of a live online meetings every Wednesday, starting at 10 o'clock, and I've scheduled them for about an hour. I do realize that that's not a huge amount of time for a class that would normally meet quite a bit more, but we will make it work, and that's not the only time that's available. So we will meet, as if you found your way here, you know. Oh, I appreciate it, Tony. I do have a good side that I've been lucky enough to try 2 different things. But we will meet, if you found your way here, you know where we're going to be meeting. So WebEx, and a lot of the time during the summer, my colleagues were saying, I didn't try this during the summer season. They were saying that they were having a little bit of trouble with students finding their way to these meetings, but the calendar invites or the calendar seem to be the easiest way. If you find a link to find the calendar appointment for this, and then you just click that should work. But if for some reason you can't attend, I realize that everyone has lives, everyone has, the COVID has mixed up things and so on. All of these will be recorded. They're not compulsory, they're not going to count towards your grade. Of course, I'm appreciative of everyone who shows up, and I do take a little bit of notes, and I do keep that as also in mind if we have something of a borderline grade and so on, as an extra credit that you've been. And like I said, I'm also able to focus on the interests of yours. So don't worry if you can't make it. I'm required by the college to say that, yeah, we record this, and if you don't feel comfortable with this, you don't have to say your name, full name, you can just use first or last or initials. So just to kind of give you a chance that your privacy is protected. But like I said, this won't be shared in any public domain. But I'm just following. I used to also work, one of those schools was ran by lawyers. So I'm very, very good at covering my back. So what we will do in these meetings, we'll cover the weekly material, some of the key points or the harder concepts of what we are looking at that week. We can also talk about the assignments, if there's some challenges with those, or if some of them feel more challenging, or anything else. For all I care, I can be telling you jokes for an hour, but that's probably not going to be very useful for anyone, because jokes that I know are not very good. But especially moving onwards, these sessions are more of a blending between the traditional lecture and office hours. So you can come and tell what you want us to talk about, and we'll talk about that. But it doesn't mean that this is your only chance to have that. You can also let me know if you want to have office hour meeting, you want to come and talk about something, or if you want me to re-explain a concept. I will provide for everything in every week's module a video where I have done a voice-over PowerPoint, basically, explaining the concept. So you're not on your own. You will get support, but also because sometimes I don't think the same way that students do, that, oh, this is a hard concept. You tell me that, oh, you want more information about. Some of my best and most successful classes, I've been doing teaching for a while, although it wasn't my main job in the university. Some of my most successful classes have been classes where the students have been working together. I don't use any curving grading. There's no reason why everyone couldn't get an A. If you're all doing well, you can get an A, all of it. So it's not like you're in a fight against your colleague. You can actually all help each other and all do well. So there's many different ways how you can do that. Some students really benefit from study groups. I use those a lot when I was a student myself, and I've been a student for quite a long time with all the things that I've done. So consider that. If you find people that you kind of connect with, or you can just put on a discussion board or wherever you communicate with others, a shout out that, hey, is there anyone who wants to study? We can meet online. I can set you up meetings. You can set up meetings yourself. And I'm very happy to come to those meetings if you want an instructor there. So those are one way to work together, that kind of going through the material, studying together. And then I'm quite happy to make myself available to those. So I can also re-explain if there's anything difficult. Consider that. Another very successful class that I had, they actually took notes all together. They didn't set it up that, oh, only one person takes notes and then we share it at the end of the week. You can do that as well, kind of a rotating chance to take notes. But they actually had a Google document where everyone filled in their notes at the same time. And if someone missed something, the other one filled in that there. You can figure it out amongst yourself. I'm not really supposed to tell you how to study and how to take notes, but just throwing out a couple of ideas. So keep that in mind if that's something that you want to work on. We can do a shout out in one of these sessions. We can do an announcement on the course side. We can figure out many ways if those are something that you're interested in. So every course, I start with this promise that if you have a goal of getting a certain grade, or if you have a goal of learning about a certain topic, and you're really serious about I can get you there. Not a single time in my time of teaching I have failed on that. If someone says to me that I really want that A, I will then kick your butt until you get that A, and I will not let you rest. And I will tell you that if you're not quite reaching it, that you need to do this, we need to do this. And I will, if that's what it takes, I will come to the local Starbucks and make sure that you learn the topic. So I promise that. But I'm not going to do that alone. You have to be just as committed. But do feel free to let me know if you do have something like that, that you need a certain grade to get into a certain school or certain program. I will work with you. I won't start doing that on the last week of the course, though. That's going to be a little late, but I will work with you. There are also students who only just want to pass. And then they're like, don't torture me. I just want a pass. And that's fine as well. So just let me know. But if you do let me know that you have a goal, I will help you to get there. The other thing that I do want to be very mindful, and that's why I'm looking to the side because I don't have a clock in front of me, is that everyone's busy. Everyone has a lot of time. So I want to be respectful of your time. I'm going to try to now, moving forward, actually open up this a little bit earlier and start at the full hour. So we can actually go through everything that needs to be gone through. And also I'm trying to finish on time, so no one's schedules get mixed up. But again, if this is a convenient time for you, if this doesn't work, you just let me know, and then we'll make it work at another time. It might not be as official meeting as this is. It might be more of a office hour kind of a meeting that's open for everyone. I would like, and I tell you that it's going to be nicer for all of us, more you are participating. I really appreciate everyone who shouted out what they're planning to do, what are their interests. I realize that not everyone necessarily knows, but more engaged, more participation we get, more nice it's going to be for you guys as well. No one wants to listen me talking. I do that 8 hours a day, and trust me, it's not that great. I get bored of listening myself for a full hour. So let's work together. I really would think that it benefits all of us. And then I have 2 sentences there that I actually mean. I know that they sound a little bit cliche, but I really do appreciate each and every student. And each and every student, especially who are here, I will do whatever it takes to help you to get wherever you want to be or get out of these classes, whatever you want to get out of. So what you want, what thoughts you have, what questions you have, what you want to share with the class, that's valuable. That's not just valuable to me, but it's valuable to the entire class. So don't feel that, oh, it's just a silly question, because I can swear that in a class of this size, if you're thinking of it, 2 or 3 others are thinking of it as well, and they're just too shy to ask about it. So what you have to say really does matter. And you can tell kind of a science geek when they start using memes, a little bit of physics there that I put to the side. I know my jokes are really, really bad, and I love memes way too much. And the other thing is that I want to know you. I want to know who I'm working with. If I'm going to spend 17 weeks with you, it's going to be way more fun for you and me if we are actually all kind of know each other a little bit. And I also would recommend that you get to know your peers. I don't know if you recognize familiar names from the past when we still were in campus before this world went crazy. But even if you don't know, it is going to be easier and more fun for you to get to know your peers first and kind of work together. That was a very complicated way to explain something very simple. I actually stole this next box about the expectations and etiquettes and things that are that are expected by me and your peers from you, from someone else, a colleague of mine, and I actually really liked it. But I do think that a lot of these are very common sense. You probably should be, if you're going to be on camera, be dressed up at least from the top part. If you're going to be filming the top part, it might be a good idea that you turn on the mic and you just don't turn on the camera. Things like that, the active participation. These are all common sense, so I'm just not going to go through all of these one by one. But also things happen, I get it. I have a bunch of animals and sometimes they run to the screen. So I get it and I'll work with you if that happens. So I'm just going to move on from that and say few words. And I think these are, again, quite simple things. What do you need to do to prepare for the class to make sure that you're most successful and most set up to succeed in this class? It is a good idea because these meetings get quite crazy. I've been in meetings where there's 500 people. If everyone has microphone open, there's going to be echo. There's going to be all sorts of weird things going on. So I would ask, and I will do the same. I will mute my microphone when someone else is talking. In terms of, I think these are, again, I got this from your learning center about note-taking and stuff. These are basic things. However, not everyone learns the same way. Some colleagues, some peers that I had when I was a student, they didn't take any notes. They just closed their eyes and listened real carefully. I don't think closing eyes is necessarily the best if I'm showing you diagrams. But whatever works for you, knowing that these meetings will be recorded and you will have that video available. So do what is your study style, but it might be a good idea to be prepared and not during our session start looking for that paper, start looking for that pen. One thing that I would like you to do, and that I often do when we're having these meetings, I have second or third tab open as well. The second tab that I recommend that you open is the Canvas course. So you can kind of work. We sometimes look at stuff from Canvas course, especially with assignments, especially with things like that. So you can have a few different windows open on your screen. So consider doing that. And I find it easier if I have logged into all of those before one of these sessions starts. The other thing that I like to do, because I like to know who's present, I have the participants list open, so I kind of know who are the good ones. No, that's not to say that anyone else wouldn't be good. I just know who I'm talking to. I have a horrible ability. I'm not very good at remembering people's names, so I'm always cheating a little bit on that as well. And I do keep the chat open as well. Sometimes I forget to follow that, so then you just shout out. I really was impressed that someone actually used that, putting the hand up. I'm really bad at that, but that was very impressive. But if I forget something or skip something, just give me a shout out. I think that these were really basic things. Do we have any questions about anything so far? We'll take a little bit time. Oh, excellent. I really appreciate. Thank you. We'll take a little bit time for Q&A at the end, but like I said, these were really basic. I'm going to try to make this hour really worth your time. Sometimes I've even done that. I've shown exam questions at the beginning of the hour. So whoever happens to be there sees that when I was in a traditional classroom, that if you showed up early, you saw what's going to be coming up. But I might not do that here. I'm not promising. But I'll make it worth your time. This first time is kind of a little bit general, but I want to make sure that we start so that no one feels overwhelmed. So this is the AMP2 class, and all of these AMP1 and 2 are fairly similar all around Arizona and also all around the US. So we cover the same topics. By this stage, you have already covered quite a bit. And I often feel when I'm teaching these classes that after AMP1, students are like, oh, that was a lot to take in. And I'm not quite sure how these all are connected. And most of my students find that AMP2 is actually easier. There's a lot of material that we go through, but it's not going to be in as great detail as the AMP1 was. So that might be useful. I love that reaction. Thank goodness. Yeah, I do think that AMP1 goes into quite a bit of detail. So this is more of a review. And if you look at, even though we have, for example, 3 chapters about blood, heart, blood vessels, all that, they're really all connected. So it's not that much content. Lymphatic system is also related to the cardiovascular system. So we'll keep it easy. The hardest chapter of this course is the very first chapter, the endocrine system. And I can promise that it's not just because I'm mean, it's just because I find that teaching endocrine system, hormones, how hormones are made, how they act, as a chapter on its own is a big ask. And it's a big ask from a student to learn that, because you need to know all other systems first before you can study that. But this is the format that we've been given, and I'm a very good at following orders when I'm being told to something. So this is what we will do. So don't feel overwhelmed if the first chapter feels like a lot to deal with. After that, it's going to be sailing, walk in the park. It's going to be really, really easy. I do want to mention, though, just to like kind of give you another perspective, I'm sure that this might have been mentioned in your previous courses, that there's different ways of studying anatomy and physiology. What we do here in America, can you tell I'm using we because I just became American citizen. So what you guys do, what we do here is that we study one system at a time, and then we go through the entire human body. And at the end, we hope that you just somehow magically put it together and have a good idea of how it all works together. I have 2 different tricks of how to do it, that part, putting them together, and we'll have a look at that a little later. But that's not the way I was taught in Scotland, where I studied. I actually was taught in a way that we took one body part, let's say upper limb, or head, or a neck, and we studied everything about that. All the systems, how they are interlinked. And it was weird at the beginning. It's a lot to take in. But I found that that made it easier for me to kind of see those connections. So I'm not saying that one system is better than another. I'm just saying there's different ways of learning. We're learning in one way, but we'll make sure that you learn all of it anyways. It has downsides also, this regional approach. By the time I had spent 2 years in uni and I went for my first clinical rotations, they asked me, what do I know? And I was like, I know arms and head. So up from here, nothing below. That wasn't really great. So there's different approaches, but this is what we will do, and we will cover all of these, but don't be panicky. I do think that you're going to do actually better than you did in AMP1. Other than I can't give a better grade than an A, so we'll figure out. But what we do and what we are trying to do on these sessions is to focus on that week's module. That's going to be our main focus every time. So this week, bear with me for a second, I'll be right back. Apologies for that. I think that I had someone on the roof actually trying to catch some rodents that I have here. But anyway, so this week, what we are required to do, what our goals are, we're going to be looking at the syllabus. So I hope that you have taken time to find it and read it a little bit. There's also a quiz about the syllabus. So that carries points towards your final grade. So give it a go. Make sure to get it done by the end of the Sunday. I think that at midnight is when that quiz is going to close. So work through that. The syllabus is a document that lives a little bit. We are going to be updating it if there's any major changes. I would tell you if there's any major changes. In terms of, we kind of keep the right that if we find that class or students need some changes of the order or material or depth of material that we look at, we might do that, but it would always be listed in the syllabus. So bear that in mind, that check it out, and I'll let you know if there's any changes. It's also your legal protection. There's a lot of things that are legally valuable, such as Title IX statement and so on. So it's an important document, and it's something that's also important for accreditation. In terms of the icebreaker discussion, I think all of you have already found the discussion board, and you have done a great job of posting there. I'm really appreciative of that. Thank you for doing that, and I will be answering real soon. The biggest one for our assignments is going to be moving forward, not on this week, the Connect. And I think that some of you have used the Connect Plus already earlier in your AMP1. Did anyone have issues either getting that code or getting that set up or synced? I would not be surprised if someone has issues, because I think it changes a little bit every semester. But if anyone has had issues with that, give me a shout out so I know to take time for that or make a video of that. But if I hear nothing, I assume that everyone's still quite happy with the Connect. Yeah, the Connect is an online product that we will use. A lot of your homework, a lot of the assignments will be there. And then in this week's module, we have a bunch of helpful info. I think that there's tips and tricks and systems and there's all sorts of information like that listed, and a little bit also about tutoring. And I'll say a couple of words of that at the end as well. So I just want you to know that there is support. You're not left if you cannot get the Connect to work. There is going to be support for that. Just ask for it. Don't be lost by yourself. Okay, excellent. Yeah, I think that Connect is a little bit on the expensive side, and whether there's money available, different institutions did differently. I'm going to have to be careful how I phrase this. Some institutions, and I won't say names, decided we got some support money from the government, and we did help students with some of the expenses that were involved with that. So I will have a look of that. I see where we are with the Connect, but that's something that don't feel lost. Don't feel that you're not getting support if that's technically challenging. I can't say anything about the finances. The tutoring aspect that I mentioned to you guys, we have tutoring available, and it's probably going to be even more important than ever before because we're working remotely, but there is help, there is tutoring available, and we're using something called Cranium Cafe. It's a new setup, new system. And what it does, we have live people at the other end available for you and available for you to get help, get assistance as you need. You simply log into the website through link that's also listed in this week's module. You don't need to have an appointment, and you pick a tutor that you want to speak to. There's a little bit of information of each tutor. What are their specialties? What do they do? And then if they are online, you can choose to chat with them. And if they are available, they will move you to a cafe meeting. If they are not available, then you get placed into a lobby where you kind of wait until someone is available for you. So that's something that I really recommend that you make use of. You're paying for that in your tuition, so it's no extra cost for you. Tutoring can become really expensive in many other places where you're paying for a tutor by the hour. So make use of those services. Same thing is also, if you can't find a tutor, I'm happy to help you as needed. So that's one of the options. So at this point, we will tackle any questions that you may have. I think we've covered a lot. Is there anything that you're confused, unclear, want me to clarify? I see Hannah raising a hand.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify for myself. So all of our assignments will be posted on Canvas, right? Nothing will be like okay.
No, there's not going to be curveballs. Most of your assignments are going to be done on Connect, but I would post that first on the Canvas. We kind of link those two systems. So don't feel that I'm going to do a curveball and you'll find later on that, oh, I didn't do this activity or I missed something.
Yeah.
I'm not out to catch you.
Perfect. So I have a couple of instructors that don't post assignments on Canvas, so just making sure.
No, that's good. I really appreciate you. I often feel that it's horrible that students a lot of the time are left with an impression that we're trying to trick them. I've been a student for so long. My goal is to get you all to do amazing. So I'm not out to trick you to any.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you for answering my question.
Thank you, Hannah. That was a good question. Anyone else? Any other questions? I might just quickly mention one thing that I kind of assumed that few students would be interested. How about the exams? So what we will do, we will talk more about the exams closer to the time that they come, but we will have some, but they are all from the material that I will include to those videos and any other material that I post on the Canvas. So they are all accessible for you ahead of the time. The questions are not going to be out to trick you again. They are very, very easy. You can use any resources that you have in most of the exams. There's, I think, one or two where we have to use kind of a different setup. But from my point of view, it's more about not catching you and not making you memorize, but actually making you remember things and find out things and so on. So exams aren't, again, not there to catch you. What's surprising is that often we instructors are more upset if you guys don't do well. So it's more of a test for us as well. Any other questions? We have still a little bit time, 8 minutes.
Do you do study guides?
So traditionally, that's a really good question. Traditionally, I think that in America, a lot of teachers provide study guides. Is that correct?
It just depends on the instructor.
Okay. Well, I normally haven't used in the past, but now that I've become America, I've realized that I become here and teach here. I've realized that you guys are looking for that. So I will definitely try to come up with something. The exams are not so much from the study guides. I would really say that the material that I provide during each lecture or each chapter, that's your study guide.
Okay,
But
thank
that's
you.
not really teacher answer, like not answering, but really answering.
No, thank you. That helps.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, again, that was a really good point, and it helps me to remember that I will make study guides available, but I'm really not out here to surprise you with something that wouldn't have been covered. Yes, I see Hannah has a hand up.
Yeah, she kind of triggered another question that I
Good.
had. I took this class a couple years ago, and I'm retaking it because I wanted to get a better grade in this class.
I like that. We'll get you that grade.
Yeah. So in my last class, so we had two separate exams. We had one which was all anatomy, and then we had one that was the physiology of it. So, like for lecture, we had, a multiple questions test, and then for the labs, we had a whole separate test. So is that how it's going to be for
That
this,
sounds
or is
really
everything
weird to
all in
me.
one?
Even though I'm trained as an anatomist, I'm only trained to know stuff, what their name are and where they are located. But I don't think you can study anatomy and physiology so that they're separate from each other. So I would not see a situation where I would give you a separate anatomy and separate physiology test. They would be mixed together. So if that's good or
Okay,
bad.
so the lab and the lecture is all going to be in one exam then, right?
Well, to be honest, I won't ask questions about lab is what you do and you build up your lab score. The exam is simply about lecture material.
Okay.
I hope that helps. That was a really good question, and I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing to an instructor who thinks that they are separate topics because they're not.
Yeah, it was just weird because we had the lecture for an hour and then we would go to lab as like a totally different thing. So we would have one test for lecture and one test for lab, and they just so happened to be, one was more anatomy and one was more physiology. So
Well, and
that's
that
why I
makes
just wanted
sense
to
that
ask.
in a lab it's probably easier to do physiology. I love that Tony is already calling you, Hannah, that you're going to be study buddies. Really, I would try to combine both. I know that some schools and us including kind of separate those as a grade, but they're different grade for labs and different grade for lectures, but they're all blended in my work.
Perfect. That actually makes it a little easier too. So
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And I do really love the peer action. That's really great, Tony, that you're already calling on dibs on someone.
well, thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Any other questions? That's good that one person's question triggers another question. We've got about 4 minutes, and it's not because I'm planning to do a runner. I just don't know how I set it up. That does it actually cut off at the 4 minutes or full hour? Any other questions? Anything else that you want clarified? Of course, those can come in later, and then you just give me a shout out. And I will absolutely help you guys if something else comes soon. Oh, I'm glad that you're enjoying it. I have to say that I'm not really good at being super formal. I was raised in very liberal Europe. I spent many years in Amsterdam, and those are stories on their own. But we do need to be able to have good time because we're spending that long time together. So let's get through this, like you said, together. And my goal is just for all of you to do well. That's the biggest thing for me. Any other questions? And if you're too shy to ask with a voice, you can write it as well, or you can send an email. You can send a message also on the chat for one of your colleagues so that I don't see it and no one else sees, and you can tell them to ask. No, that was probably a little bit mean. I wouldn't do that. That's putting someone else on the spot. But it's amazing what you can do in chat. You can have all sorts of conversations going on. Yeah, Hannah has a hand up.
Oh, I do?
Oh, but the old hand. I don't know how to use those. Good job.
Sorry, I turned it off. There we go.
No, I'm so bad about these. I really have to focus. Well, I assume that there's no more other questions. If there is later on, don't hesitate. You can reach out to me anytime. Really, this is I need to be careful how I phrase this. This class is my main gig. I have a job somewhere else, but I really want to focus on this class because I think that what you guys are doing and where you're studying, you're set for success. So I want to make sure that everyone gets out whatever you want to get out of this class. So don't hesitate to let me know. For example, if you are aiming for a better grade than you got last time, or you're feeling that you're not quite getting a topic, or if you're really enjoying something, that's also handy for me to know that then I do it. Like some people hate my jokes, and I'm okay with that. Then you just tell me, and I'll try to be more formal. Well, I think that in that case, if there's no more questions, we're a couple of minutes off from the full hour, so we're going to start wrapping up. And oh, thank you, Tony. I do realize that this was very general session. Once we get to the actual lecture material, it's probably going to be full on about that topic. So we will make these sessions worth your while. And don't ever feel that you only have 1 hour a week when you can get assistance. I am available at any time. And like I said, sometimes I go to Europe, so I'm up at any hour that you want help. I will be here. The only thing is that I don't have really a phone number to give you, so use the Canvas messaging or the email, and I will get back to you. Great. Well, we're going to wrap up here now, and I do recommend if you feel like study groups would be something that works for you, try to organize those amongst yourself. If you then feel like it's not happening, I can even try to facilitate that a little bit, but I can't tell you that you have to do a study group. Well, I'm going to thank you all now, and we'll see next week at the same time, at the same place. And I really, really appreciate all of you coming and joining me. I know you have busy lives, and I know there's a lot going on for everyone, and we'll make this time work for you. So have a really good rest of the week, and next week we'll really get to the first chapter, the endocrine chapter. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.